when you come to the wedding invitation, it's free. Man, if you've ever gone to the reception of a wedding, what do they have set out there before you? Name some of the things that make you feel good. Come on. They got food and drink and music, the dance floor, prizes at the table. Somebody can take, the prize of the table. Man, the centerpiece. Man, and they have people just talking and everybody, unless you marry into a corrupt family, everybody is happy in the wedding and nobody wants to leave. It is wonderful. I'll mention something. Remind me to mention something after the sermon. I will mention it on the table because I went somewhere yesterday evening and I had to leave because looks made me leave. People looked at me in a certain way and I had to leave. And people that looked at me in a certain way, most of them are professing Christians, and it killed my spirit. And I said, I'm out. I can't handle it. I'll tell you about it after the sermon, and you'll help me out. And don't try to tell me why they looked at me like that. I want you to answer, would you have looked at me like that? Did you know that you can think that you are part of the wedding invitation feast? If you are somewhere and you see something that you disagree with, you should have the right spirit. Oh man. Now let's look at this. All that is done for the cause of good and life in the future. He is worthy of adoration and praise. That's why I want to be invited to that invitation. He is worthy. And we are to show this, not by our argument, but by our lives. Moving on down, as I've taken a lot of time already. What is the danger of lightly regarding this wedding invitation? It provokes the anger of the Lord. Look at verse 7 of Matthew chapter 22. If you reject the invitation, it provokes God to become angry with you. But the king was enraged and sent his armies and destroyed those murderers and set the city on fire. Now this is a very interesting verse of scripture because here Jesus is saying all that the king did for the recipients in the city, he took away the very privileges that were for them in the first place. It doesn't mean that God is an arbiter or wrong word. It doesn't mean that God is ambiguous. It means that if you treat God with disrespect in this way, that the blessings that he would have for you would be removed because of your action. We seem to think this. If I become weak and I sin in an area, God can take salvation from me. That's why my friend that I disagree with, he's even removed his website off of the website now. To me, which was extraordinary because of the good work that he had produced. And he took it off and he literally feels that he's lost his salvation. And then he says to me, but you don't believe that you can lose your salvation. I believe that you can. This is impossible for me to, if I could lose my salvation, then I never had it in the first place. You see, you have to understand how deep that gets. If you believe that you can lose it, you never had it. See, because you can't have the eternal Son of God and then not have him. You can have a belief in your head about it that you didn't have quite right. And then when something happens to you, you say, well, my belief was screwed up. Okay, well, you were screwed up, say it. No. You were screwed up, say it. Yes, I was screwed up, right. I know on whom, okay, let's have this conversation. Remember when Paul said in the Bible, I know on whom I believe. What was he saying? Yeah, this is a good time to throw this question in. When Paul said, and Bob's going to look up the scripture. When Paul said, for I know on whom I believe, what? You guys got to answer it out there too. What was he saying?
He said that he was absolutely sure. He had total assurance of his knowledge of Christ.
Paul had never seen him in person.
But you don't have to see him.
You don't have to,
That's
okay.
faith. When you believe and speak what you cannot see.
Okay,
That's faith.
now, that's good. Come on.
Yeah.
Put it in your own words. That's wonderful. I love this.
I don't know, I was just thinking about, because I know on whom I believe, I know those things about God and who He is, and I'm just thinking at the point of not being able to lose your salvation, because the salvation was given to me from God anyway. And God
Yes.
is all powerful and He's sovereign, and can't nobody take my salvation.
Not
from
even
me,
you.
Not even me. If God gave it to me,
Right.
because of who He is, not because of me, because I'm any good, but because of who God is. He's all powerful, He's all knowing, nobody can take anything from Him.
Right.
And there's a scripture that speaks to that, those that I put, you know, it's in, you
That
won't be able
no
to
man
pluck
is
them
able to
out.
pluck them out of my hand.
Right.
Right. You find that scripture, Bob?
2 Timothy 1:12.
2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 12. Why don't we go there? It's a good time for us to go there and take a very close look at this scripture, because you will be able to apply it. 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 12. Because I want to read what Paul is saying within the context of why he is saying what he is saying. Okay, man, this is beautiful. I want to start at verse 11. He's speaking about his calling. He says, "For which I was appointed a preacher and an apostle and a teacher." So he's affirming the offices in the church that he holds. And then he says in verse 12, "For this reason." What reason? The reason of his appointment. See, you have to read it like that. "I also suffer these things." Now, what I do is I look at Paul's statement in verse 11, and then in verse 12 I'm saying, well, that's why I'm suffering then. See what I mean? I found a true yoke fellow. See, and then it says, "But I am not ashamed." Remember the scripture that we had earlier? "For I'm not ashamed of the gospel of Christ." And then I have to ask myself, am I ashamed? No, for I'm not ashamed, for I know whom I have believed. In other words, I know personally Jesus Christ, the person of the second person of the Trinity. I know him, and I am convinced, these are good words right here, that he is able to guard, that means to hold fast that which is valuable. That's what that is. And I don't know why my friend doesn't read. He says that he believes in the Bible. He says he is able to guard what I have entrusted to him until that day. This is saying I am saved until he comes to get me. Now, why would he send me an email and say, "I know you don't believe that you can lose your salvation, but I do"? He don't believe this. And everything you do on your website and everything, if it is not done in complete adherence to this, you're a liar. And I hope you're looking at this, and this will weigh you and judge. You can get mad at me and hate me all. I believe this. I know on whom I believe. I can never lose my salvation, though I know, Cedric, that I can sin. See what I'm talking about? But when you believe that you're so saved that you can't sin, you are completely out of your mind. Because you want to live right, and then in the same breath, wait a minute, who can tell me what that is? You're living right